Hello and thank you for viewing my video. My name is Brian. In this video we will set up remote access to the network equipment configured in the previous videos for CIDR and growing the network. Topics covered in this video are console port access, virtual terminal line access using SSH local user account, setting up a password for enable mode, password encryption, message of the day banner. For ease of demonstration we will be using Cisco's packet tracer program, which can be found on cisco.com. Remote access will use a local account we create on the device. Configuring SSH. Step 1 is we need to add a domain name to the configuration. If we don't have one configured, we will get an error when we go to generate the RSA key needed for SSH. Next we need to specify SSH version. Now we generate the RSA key. 1024 will be the number of bits used to create the encryption key. For SSH version 2, the range is 768 to 2048. I like to double check that SSH has been enabled with the show IP SSH. SSH has some options we can configure. One we will change is the SSH timeout. By default, it is 120 seconds. Let's change it to 60 seconds for this exercise. This is the amount of time one has to authenticate after they connect via SSH. Another is authentication retries, which by default is 3 tries but I'm changing it to 5. This is the number of attempts one gets at putting in the right credentials. Next up is creating the local user. We use the username command. Making the username admin, this is not good security practice but for an exercise it's okay. We designate the privilege level, with 15 being the highest level. And finally a password. Once again a password of Cisco is not good security but we can get away with it on an exercise. We want equipment to prompt for a password when someone tries and use enable mode. We use the command enable password. Using the show running configuration command we can see passwords for our local user and for the enable password are in clear text. This is not ideal, so we can use the service password encryption command to hide them with encryption. This method will encrypt all the passwords in its running config that it can find using the MD5 encryption scheme. This includes the enable password. However, had we used the enable secret password command instead of enable password it would already be encrypted and would not be affected. Next we will set up the console port, to prompt for password Cisco. We could have it use local user but I wanted to show both ways. Password first. The console port allows for direct access to the device and is used for configuration initially, or if no remote access is available. There are a few options we want to use here. One is the logging synchronous command. Messages and debug output sent to the console will not interrupt the command you are typing. The command will be moved to a new line. This will save lots of frustration caused from being interrupted while configuring. The other is the exec timeout command. This command sets the time to disconnect a idle session, meaning there is no input. The default for this idle timeout is 10 minutes. We are going to set it for 5 minutes 0 seconds. And the login command. Next we configure the VTY lines or virtual terminal lines that SSH and Telnet use when connecting remotely. Here is where you can specify if we are going to allow SSH or Telnet or both to connect to the equipment. Login local here means use the local user accounts that are configured on the router. Like the one we created. And finally, we are going to add a banner message of the day. This is a message anyone will see when they try to log into the equipment. So the command is banner motd followed with a caret and delimitating character. In this case we are using uppercase C. We put in whatever message you want someone to see. And end with the caret and same delimitating character. Let's run a test from a computer. Ping first. Then SSH to the switch. We got prompted for password. We see the banner we configured. And lastly, we are prompted for enable password. I'm going to quickly run through setting up remote access on the remaining devices. Here's a joke while we suffer through this last configuration part. How do you catch an Ether bunny? With an Ethernet. All done. Let's recap. We configured SSH with version 2 and generated the RSA key used by SSH. We configured a local user account to be used as credentials for SSH remote access. We configured the local console port with a password for login. We configured the enable password. We turned on password encryption. We configured the VTY lines for remote access to allow SSH login. And always, document. Please give a like and subscribe so you will be notified when more videos are uploaded.